Hi, welcome to Snap Language Learner. This is Mark Franco. So today we're going to talk about something that sometimes even intermediate and advanced students have some problems with. Let's take a look at it. It has to do with sentence structures. It's called embedded questions or embedded sentences. It has to do with understanding the sentence structure. These are common mistakes that people make. I don't know, who is he? I'm not sure, when does she arrive? Do you have any idea what time is it? Do you see anything wrong with these sentences? If you don't, that's okay. A lot of people think that there's nothing wrong with a sentence. So let's take a good look at it. So these are the basic forms of sentences in English: affirmative, negative, and interrogative sentences. Let's start with the verb to be. You can say you are late, you're not late, or you can have a contraction as in you aren't late. Are you late? Aren't you late? So the last one is an interrogative sentence, but it's also negative. For example, if someone has to be someplace at like 2 o'clock and it's almost 2, you say, hey, aren't you late? Now, with the verb to be, as with other verbs in the present, the third person singular form of the verb needs an S, as in John is a teacher, John is not a teacher, or isn't a teacher. Is John a teacher? Now that's interrogative. Isn't John a teacher? That's a negative interrogative sentence. With other verbs, I speak Greek, I don't speak Greek. Do you speak Greek? Remember, in the third person singular, in the present tense, you need an S, so she drives fast. She doesn't drive fast. Does she drive fast? Now, notice that when you ask a question, the subject and the verb are inverted. You put something, you put the verb or an auxiliary verb in front of the subject. Normally, you would say, some people enjoy horror movies. So the subject starts the sentence. Some people do not enjoy horror movies. Now, here, because you have a negative, you need to remove the auxiliary verb from the verb and put it in front of the negative. So some people do not enjoy horror movies. But when you ask a question, notice that the auxiliary verb actually goes in front of the subject. You don't start the sentence with a subject. You start with a verb or an auxiliary verb. So this is why you say that there's a subject-verb inversion. You invert the verb and the subject. It rains in the summer. So here you have the third person singular in the present. So you say rains. The auxiliary would be does and rain. So you'd say it doesn't rain in the summer. Does it rain in the summer? Now, as you know, a question word can replace a part of a sentence. For example, you say, John studies every day. The question would be, does John study every day? Now, what if this is something you don't know? So you can use a question word. In this case, every day would be how often. And you start the sentence with a question word. So how often, and then you ask the question, how often does John study? Always remember to start the sentence with a question word. We work in an office. Do you work in an office? Where do you work? So where is replacing in an office. And again, where starts the sentence. And then you ask the question, do you work? Where do you work? Now, there's a situation where the question word is the subject of the sentence. There's no subject-verb inversion if the question word is the subject. For example, something happened yesterday. Something is the subject. If you want to ask a question about this, you just say, what happened? Not did what happen, but what happened yesterday. Mary is in this office. Who's in this office? So Mary is the subject. Mary is in this office. Who is also the subject. Who is in this office? Compare these sentences. Mary lives in California, where Mary is the subject, right? Where does Mary live? Here you put the auxiliary in front of Mary, the subject. But when you say, who lives in California? Well, who needs to start the sentence? So just say, who lives in California? This happens every Sunday. How often does this happen? So here, this is the subject. How often does this happen? Does is the auxiliary, so it goes in front of the subject. But when you say, what happens every Sunday? Well, what is the subject? It needs to start the sentence. What happens? But, well, we're here to learn about embedded questions, right? So, what are embedded questions and what is this all about? So, let's take a look at it. Embedded questions are questions that are embedded or inside a sentence or another question. Now, this is important. Embedded questions are not really questions. What does that mean? Let's take a look at it. Brazil is in South America. Is Brazil in South America? Is Brazil? The verb is in front of the subject, so that's a question. What if you say, I don't know this information, or I'm not sure about this information? So the answer comes from the question, is Brazil in South America? But here you're saying, I don't know if Brazil is in South America. You use if because this could be yes it is or no it's not. I don't know if Brazil is in South America. You could also say, I'm not sure if Brazil is in South America. Now, what if you say, I'm sure, or I know? I'm sure that Brazil is in South America. I know that Brazil is in South America. Now, we're not using if here because it's not maybe it is, maybe it's not. I know that it is. There's no maybe it is, maybe it's not. I know that it is. John is late. The interrogative would be, is John late? What if you say, I don't know? I don't know this, or I'm sure. I don't know if he's late, or I'm sure that he is late, or I'm sure that he's late. You could also just drop that and say, I'm sure he is. So is John late? I'm sure he is. Now here you start with a question word. Why is John late? So that is a real question. But if you say, I don't know, well, that's not a question anymore. So I don't know why he's late. What if you ask someone, do you know what? Do you know why he's late? But wait a minute, this sentence ends in a question mark. So isn't that a question? Well, let's take a closer look. This here is a question. Do you know what? Do you know why he's late? So why he is late, well, that is affirmative. He is late. Do you know why he is late? Where does Peter work? You have an auxiliary verb before the subject. You could answer saying, I don't know what? I don't know where Peter works. You could say, please ask Peter where he works. Now this is interesting. You can also have multiple embedded sentences. This is a sentence inside a sentence inside a sentence. So for example, if you say, how old is Jack? You could ask, does anyone know how old he is? Now how can you answer this question? Does anyone know how old he is? You could say, I'm not sure if anyone knows how old he is. Cool, huh? So you have one sentence embedded into another sentence that has another sentence embedded in it. I'm not sure if anyone knows how old he is. Or you could say, I don't think that anyone knows how old he is. Cool. Now let's go back to the very beginning. We saw these sentences, right? I don't know who is he. I'm not sure when does she arrive. Do you have any idea what time is it? Now, do you know what's wrong with these sentences? I'm sure you do. So this part here is incorrect, right? You're not saying, I don't know, who is he? You're saying, I don't know who he is. You're not saying, I'm not sure, when does she arrive? You're saying, I'm not sure when she arrives. You're not saying, do you have any idea? What time is it? You're saying, I don't have any idea what time it is. Oh, look, the woman is happy now. Hey, are you happy about these sentences? Yeah, I'm sure you are. All right, now it's your turn. Let's practice this. For the link to a practice video, see related materials in the description. This is a way for you to make sure that you understood everything and get some practice. All right, thank you so much for using Snap Language Learner to improve your English. If you like this video, share it with other people learning English and give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss any future videos. And remember, enjoy learning. Always.